Richard Allen, in a confession to the psychologist Monica Walla, claimed to have kidnapped Abby and Libby to rape them, but had been prevented from doing so when he believed he was spotted with the girls by the driver of a van, claimed to be Brad Weber. Richard therefore gave up the plan to rape the girls and instead stabbed them to death so that they would not turn him in to the police, and then immediately fled the scene, but the bridge guy didn't leave the scene shortly after. Brad Weber appeared with his white van, but stayed in the area for an hour and a half until when Sarah Carbaugh said she saw the bridge guy leaving the area at 4 p.m., thus Richard Allen's confession is inconsistent with the facts on the crime scene and with the witness statement, so it may be wrong. On February 13, 2017, Brad Weber said he worked from 5:41 p.m. to 2:02 p.m. at the Subaru plant. He drove his white Ford 2000 to work, which was unusual and happened only because he was hauling a trailer. He drove straight home afterward and arrived around 2:44 p.m. using a private drive that passes underneath the far east side of the Monon High Bridge spanning Deer Creek. The Apple Health app on Libby's phone recorded movement for the last time at 2:32 p.m. Brad Weber, who owns property near the site where the Delphi 8th graders, Abby and Libby, were found dead, became a critical witness for the prosecution because Richard Allen, in one of his in-prison confessions at Westville, told Monica Walla, his psychologist-therapist, that he kidnapped the girls and planned to rape them, but he was spooked by a van driving on a remote country road nearby. Instead, according to the confessions to Monica Walla, he slit the throats of Abby and Libby and fled the crime scene immediately. Monica Walla, a true crime aficionado, acknowledged that she followed the Delphi murders and Richard Allen's case with great interest during her personal time, even as she was treating him, a fact she mentioned to her supervisors. Monica Walla likely knew about the dozens of social media posts mentioning a van, implying that Walla could have seen those posts and mentioned it to Richard Allen during one of their sessions. It would be important to know whether Monica Walla could be feeding Richard Allen information about a van. A lady on Facebook named Jacqueline Bailey Naval believes Brad Weber is the bridge guy and wrote this comment on his Facebook profile during the trial of Richard Allen.
How can you murder two innocent young girls? Child murderer. Everyone around the world knows you are the one who committed the Delphi murder of Libby and Abby. Your day will soon be here and you will find out that your lies didn't work out well for you, but I hope you will. Like your prison when you have been arrested.
Another lady, named Teresa Marie, wrote this warning comment on Brad Weber's Facebook profile during the Richard Allen trial.
Charges coming for perjury.
Richard Allen's account about the van must be considered incorrect, as Brad Weber's white Ford van only passed Richard Allen 12 minutes after Abby and Libby had been killed. At least one of the jurors had given so much weight to Richard Allen's account of the van that scared him away, that he had found him guilty on the basis of that account, according to the Murder Sheet podcast. 13 WTHR reported that the police had examined Brad Weber's gun, which is of the same type as Richard Allen's Sig Sauer. The expert who had examined it could not rule out that the cartridge found on the ground between the bodies of Abby and Libby came from the magazine of Brad Weber's Sig Sauer. But otherwise there is no strong evidence that Brad Weber is the bridge guy. On his way from Lafayette he first passed near the crime scene 12 minutes after the girls had been killed, and when Police Inspector Pallone visited Brad Weber at home during the search for the girls at 5:15 p.m., he was not muddy or bloody on his clothes and it did not appear that he had showered to remove traces. Brad Weber was again visited by the police on February 19 and then the property and buildings were searched without the police being able to find anything that connected Brad Weber to the murders of Abby and Libby. Richard Allen's defense has not pointed to Weber as a suspect in the murders of Abby and Libby. Minivan Traveler, also known as Jim Wagoner, is a YouTuber who works on true crime. For years he was totally engrossed in the Delphi murder case. He was particularly active in the last 6 months of 2019, On YouTube, where he covered the Delphi murder case from day to day, the viewers could follow how he worked his way through the 6 months to a man he was sure was the bridge guy. He nicknamed his suspect the Grill Guy. Minivan Traveler started with a team consisting of a local sponsor, Julie Melvin, 2 Catholic priests and a local journalist from the local newspaper the Carroll County Comet. Minivan Traveler managed it all from a great distance, from the ponderosa pine forests of northern Arizona and adjacent areas in Colorado, where he lives around in the woods bordering the desert. He is most active in the northern part of Coconino County, at the southern end of the Grand Canyon. He lives in his minivan, which has been converted into a home. Minivan Traveler's main occupation for 49 years has been working as an advertiser and newscaster for various local radio stations, first in Sacramento, California, then in Colorado, and now in Coconino County in northern Arizona. Minivan Traveler started the hunt for the bridge guy by going through surveillance videos from the employees' parking lot at the Indiana Packers in Delphi. He had gained access to the videos from the company. The footage was from some time before the Delphi murders, the day of the murders and shortly afterwards. The footage shows that a van was parked in the parking lot every day during working hours in the weeks before the murders and also in the days after the murders, but on the actual day of the murders the van was absent from the parking lot all day. This made Minivan Traveler focus on the owner of the van. For that purpose he got help from the 2 Catholic priests who were part of his team. The priests had seen a van parked on the banks of Deer Creek the day of the murders. They and the minivan Traveler believed it was the same van that used to be parked in the Indiana Packers parking lot. When the priests learned of the murders on the news, they remembered the van that had been parked on the bank. They rushed to the scene and collected evidence they found at the scene. Then they called the Minivan Traveler in the northern Arizona woods to brief him about the evidence they had collected. They found tracks of the van and followed the tracks up to the stream bank. It was tight between the tree trunks on that stretch, so the van had bumped into several tree trunks, so the wing mirror had partially fragmented, parts of the rear lights had also been broken and fragments left lying on the ground, which the priests found and picked up. They also found traces of car paint on the bark of some trees. The Minivan Traveler was informed about all the remains the priests found. The finds were then handed over to the Delphi police as potential evidence in the Delphi case. Midway through the investigation, the Minivan Traveler's main sponsor Julie Melvin resigned from his team after Minivan Traveler had given her a strong reprimand because she had used unethical methods in her investigation of the Delphi murders. She had made secret audio recordings of people she had spoken to in her investigation of the Delphi murders, including that of a police officer in the Delphi police. She had hidden the recorder in her bag. Julie Melvin has always been a zealot in solving the case. She has not only spent a lot of her time on the case, but also a lot of money to solve it. Julie Melvin was furious with Minivan Traveler after his reprimand and cut off her sponsorship of him with immediate effect, but it didn't matter to Minivan Traveler because by then his investigation, with the great help of Julie, the 2 priests and the local journalist, had culminated in him having found the man he thought was the bridge guy. He nicknamed his suspect the Grill Guy because he was pictured in an edition of the local newspaper the Carroll County Comet with a large picture of him grilling hamburgers on the Farmer's Day in Delphi. To the followers of his YouTube channel, Minivan Traveler said that he could not reveal much about how he had found the Grill Guy and the grounds for suspicion, as it could compromise the case for the prosecution. He could therefore only give limited information about his suspect, such as the fact that he was about 35 years old, was unmarried and single, that he worked in chicken farming and egg production in Delphi, and that there was a businessman in Delphi who had the same first and last name as him. While Minivan Traveler was talking about the Grill Guy, he showed a close-up of the Grill Guy serving hamburgers to those present at the Farmer's Day in Delphi. The extensive case file on the Grill Guy was then sent to the Delphi police by the Minivan Traveler, hoping it would solve the case and result in the payment of the huge bounty to him. But it didn't work out that way. The local police quickly dropped Grill Guy's case, which angered Minivan Traveler so much that he made a video in which he strongly criticized the local police in Carroll County and the Indiana State Police for being lazy, stupid, and incompetent. Earlier he had made a video about how diligent, skilled, and smart they were. What is interesting in the Grill Guy case is the fierce focus on vans in the Monon High Bridge area it generated through all the Broadcasts of Minivan Traveler throughout the summer and fall of 2019 with daily broadcasts of approximately 1 hour each and with an average viewership of 6,500 people each, the Minivan Traveler got its message across in a very powerful way, in a demagogic way like a master propagandist. The message of a van in the meat packers parking lot and vans at Deer Creek were hammered into the brain cells of the viewers of his videos, and among them were likely two viewers, Monica Walla and Richard Allen. So when Richard Allen, under the inhumane conditions of the prison, had a complete breakdown with severe psychotic attacks, it was natural that he confessed about a van that had disturbed his plans to rape Abby and Libby, so he killed Abby and Libby and immediately fled the area. Richard Allen may have been influenced by all the van stories of the Minivan Traveler in 2019, so they may have come out of his brain cells 4 years later during the confessional conversations with the psychologist. Monica Walla. So the story of Brad Weber's van and other vans was well known to the general public long before Richard Allen spoke about it to Monica Walla on May 3, 2023, so it's wrong to claim that this was just something only the killer could have known about. Monica Walla, detectives, police officers, and prison guards may all have asked Richard Allen leading questions when he was vulnerable and weak during his psychotic attacks in order to get him to confess to the Delphi murders. Minivan Traveler was exposed to strong criticism by other YouTubers for his work on the Grill Guy case, especially after he landed an interview with Indiana's police chief Doug Carter, something no YouTuber had accomplished until then. This led to great envy among other YouTubers who then started to attack Minivan Traveler, among them Gray Hughes, who subjected Minivan Traveler to harsh criticism and ridicule, both in the comment fields under the videos and in his own live broadcasts. He constantly called Minivan Traveler a nut job and his channel a dipshit channel. There were numerous angry exchanges between Gray Hughes and Minivan Traveler in the last half of 2019. Minivan Traveler accused that Gray Hughes had set up his friend at the time Cairo with several members of Gray's channel called The Freaks to run a persistent harassment and stalking campaign of Minivan Traveler. Another YouTuber, Anthony Greeno, also came into conflict with Minivan Traveler in the Grill Guy case when he went against the theory that a van had driven all the way to the bank of Deer Creek as Minivan Traveler and the two priests claimed. Anthony made a video about the case and was on site and measured the distance between the tree trunks with a tape measure where the van should have driven. Anthony came to the conclusion that it was too narrow between the trunks for a van to have passed. Minivan Traveler didn't like Anthony getting involved in his work and opposed it, so there were many angry exchanges between the two throughout the fall of 2019. The strongest reaction against Minivan Traveler came from the YouTuber Harvey Carroll Jr., who strongly criticized and condemned Jim Waggoner's investigative work in the Grill Guy case, calling it irresponsible against a completely innocent man. Minivan Traveler very angrily responded by accusing Harvey Carroll Jr. of stalking, bullying, and harassing him by using fake online accounts and profiles. Harvey strongly denied the allegations. All the criticism, harassment, threats, stalking and ridicule from other YouTubers and followers of the Delphi case, and a deep disappointment that the police had not appreciated and praised his work with the Grill Guy case, as well as a lot of problems YouTube created for him, was unbearable for Minivan Traveler. So in a state of rage, desperation, and powerlessness in the pine forest, he deleted his YouTube channel with all his videos about the Delphi case. Later Jim Waggoner came up with a successor channel which was based on interviews with retired Police Lieutenant Tom Spivey on the Delphi murders investigation. Spivey had insights as he had worked on the East Area Rapist case in the 1970s Sacramento. Minivan Traveler had first-hand experience with the East Area Rapist. As a teenage punk, using a BB gun and a hatchet, he had repulsed an attack on his home by the serial rapist in 1976. The interviews with Tom Spivey were sober and uncontroversial, and therefore for internet trolls quite boring without a lot of melodrama as Jim Waggoner's previous channels, so critics and YouTube trolls kept away and didn't subject these videos to criticism, stalking and harassment, but the videos were nevertheless deleted by Jim Waggoner because alleged by him his channel was unfairly treated by the YouTube staff. In early November 2024, Hoosier Cold Cases asked Jim Waggoner this question: Jim, can you please put your videos back up of your work investigating the camera out there at Indiana Packers? The white van is paramount to this case right now, and I think you could end all of the debates with the work you did. He got this answer from Jim Waggoner: all gone, sorry my friend. Minivan Traveler constantly encounters homeless drifters in the pine forests and deserts of northern Arizona and in adjacent areas of Colorado. These drifters are on a pointless and futile journey crisscrossing the coniferous forests and deserts in the area. Minivan Traveler shows mercy and compassion for these poor lost souls and shares what little he has with them, while handing out baguettes, marmalade, peanut butter, and chicken soup to the drifters. He also gives them spiritual food by reciting appropriate Bible verses for them and exhorting them to accept salvation and get out of Satan's clutches, and if they want it, gives them a red-letter Bible.
Super stoked about the recent Dollar Tree Holy Bible Red Letter Edition haul I made from the local Dollar Tree. Bonus on the two larger ones are standard size Holy Bibles because they are both the Old and New Testament, with the New Testament having the red letters as well. I can give the two larger ones away to somebody with maybe a couple bucks in food that is on the street and needs it.
It has been mentioned many times in social media groups that Ronald Logan had a pig roast on his farm, possibly for his methamphetamine Odinist friends, on Sunday, a day before Abby and Libby were killed. Ronald Logan's pig roast may have been an Odinist ritual to imitate the feast in Asgard of the boar Saramnir. In Norse mythology, Saramnir is the wild boar killed and eaten every night by the Aesir, the Norse gods in Asgard, and the Einherjar, the fallen warriors in Valhalla. The cook of the gods, Eldrimner, is responsible for the slaughter of Saramnir and its preparation in the cauldron Eldrimner. After Saramnir is eaten, the beast is brought back to life again to provide sustenance for the following day. Ronald Logan's big pig roast on his farm the night before Abby and Libby were killed may have been a pagan party for the Odinists in the area. Perhaps Keegan Kline was also present at the party and promised to the group to procure the two girls Abby and Libby for sacrifice to Odin, so that the Odinists in the area would have success in all fields of life. The next day, by using the Anthony Shots profile, Keegan Kline may have lured the girls to the Monon High Bridge so they could be sacrificed to Odin. It has been speculated that his reward was to record a snuff film of the victims, that he would bring to Las Vegas to sell and share the income with Ronald Logan. The inmate Richie Davis, who spent time with Keegan Kline at Newcastle Correctional from January 2024 to early 2025, said Keegan Kline told him about his friendship with Ronald Logan. As an old man, Logan was not tech-savvy, so Keegan helped him with the use of burner phones so the old farmer could download child porn from the Dropbox ring. Keegan Kline was a member of the largest Dropbox child porn rings ever to be exposed in Indiana. But nothing has happened with the Dropbox case since then. Is it because there were many very prominent people among the members of the ring? Some YouTubers and social media discussion groups have pointed at Gabriel Ellis as a leader of the Sons of Odin motorcycle gang in Kokomo, while another key member of the group, convicted murderer Alan Tinker, has been pointed out as a hitman for the group. YouTube creator Michael Phillips from Kokomo has had extensive coverage of the members of the Sons of Odin Kokomo, which has brought him into direct conflict with the group's members who have threatened and physically attacked him on several occasions. It is possible that Gabriel Ellis and Alan Tinker attended the pig roast allegedly hosted by Ronald Logan on the Sunday before Abby and Libby were killed, as the Sons of Odin Kokomo are said to have held an initiation ceremony in the Monon High Bridge area on the morning of Monday, February 13, 2017. Where Tina Roddell claims her 16-year-old daughter was ritualistically gang-raped by 5 male members of the Sons of Odin Kokomo, possibly in Ronald Logan's gray-black barn. It can't be a coincidence that this happened the same day and in the same area as the murders of Abby and Libby, and that Keegan Kline as the Anthony Shots had arranged a meeting with Abby and Libby that day. Keegan Kline has several times admitted to have assisted in the killings of Abby and Libby, but later backtracked on the admissions. The prisoner David Ricci claims that Ronald Logan admitted to him in Westville prison that he had killed Abby and Libby with the help of Keegan Kline and a third, unnamed person. This third person may have been Elvis Fields because Elvis Fields told his sister he had been at the crime scene when Abby and Libby were murdered. Keegan Kline has admitted to having been nearby at the time of the murders to a number of people, but then both Keegan and Elvis have backtracked on their admission, and as of today they vehemently deny any involvement in the murders. If Ricci Davis's story is correct that Ronald Logan, Keegan Kline, and a third person who may have been Elvis Fields participated in the murders of Abby and Libby, they may have been assisted by Gabriel Ellis and Alan Tinker if Tina Roddell's story is true. 2 days after the murders of Abby and Libby, Gabriel Ellis was arrested by Kokomo police on charges of dealing and possessing methamphetamine, illegal possession of a firearm and suspicion of child sexual abuse. Police arrested Alan Tinker for stabbing to death Jeremy Peterson 31, on May 11, 2017 outside the Dollar Tree on Reed Road in Kokomo. Connie Dillman says that the bridge guy's voice is exactly like Ronald Logan's. It was difficult to get out of the relationship with Ronald Logan, which was filled with abuse and assaults, both physical and psychological. She was prevented from leaving his house at times, both with physical force, threat of a weapon, and with manipulation. He was not content with just manipulating her, but also manipulated her family. She felt like a prisoner and a sex slave in his house. When she didn't want to have sex with him, she was raped. Finally, she was beaten down with a wrench, so she fled in her car to the doctor and had to get 7 stitches on the wound on her head. Then she fled to her sister and escaped from the brutal relationship with the violent Ronald Logan. She also told of an episode when a 13-year-old girl who was riding a horse on his property, under the pretext of helping her on the horse, Ronald Logan groped the girl's body on sexually tempting areas. Connie Dillman believed the groping was solely motivated by sexual gratification, so she reprimanded Ronald Logan for this, which resulted in an argument. The dog lady in her 70s was Ronald Logan's neighbor at the time of the murders. She claimed to have spoken to the bridge guy at the south end of the Monon High Bridge between 11:30 a.m. and 12 p.m. when she was out walking her dogs. During the same time, she had also encountered 2 young men and 4 teenagers. There are several who believe she was the source of the first bridge guy sketch of the middle-aged man. There are several who think that the dog lady gave misleading information to the police to derail the investigation. One has to wonder if the dog lady attended the big pig roast that was supposedly held on Ronald Logan's farm on Sunday, February 12, the day before Abby and Libby were killed on his property. Was the pig roast a prelude to the sacrifice of Abby and Libby the next day, as well as the initiation ceremony possibly in Ronald Logan's gray barn of Tina Roddell's daughter, conducted by 5 men who belonged to the Sons of Odin in Kokomo, of which Gabriel Ellis is said to have been a leader? One might wonder if the dog lady may have witnessed and participated in the murders of Abby and Libby. The dog lady is said to have moved and disappeared without a trace after the murders. Could trained fighting dogs have been used to control the girls? Because if Abby and Libby ran in opposite directions from the bridge guy and his helpers could have used 2 fighting dogs to chase and take down the fleeing girls so the bridge guy could pick up the girls. Because during the investigation of the murders, there was a lot of talk about dog hairs that supposedly were found on the girls. It was believed for several years until the arrest of Richard Allen that David Mccain had been near the murder scene shortly after Abby and Libby had been killed and that the bridge guy had passed him on the trail towards the Freedom Bridge shortly after David Mccain had arrived at the hiking area sometime between 2 and 3 p.m. This story was told by many YouTubers in the Delphi case as an established truth. Of all these YouTubers, David Mccain was called the flannel shirt guy after an iconic photograph in which Mccain, wearing a white flannel shirt, raises his right arm in the air to point in the direction of something, a photo that is said to have been taken by Anthony Greeno when he and Michael Stroop met David McCain at the hiking area. He talked to them about the people he had encountered in the hiking area shortly after the murders of Abby and Libby, including the bridge guy who had passed him on his way out of the area and Derek German, Libby's father, who arrived at the area at 3 p.m. when David McCain was on his way out of the area. Richard Allen knew the McCain brothers well as he had worked with the brothers in maintaining the Wabash Erie Canal through the Wabash Erie Canal Association. David McCain would therefore have recognized Richard Allen immediately if he was the bridge guy who passed him in the direction of the Freedom Bridge, even though bridge guy covered his mouth and chin with his jacket collar. Therefore Richard Allen can't be the bridge guy if it is true that David McCain saw the bridge guy. All key YouTubers who worked on the Delphi murders mentioned David McCain and the dog lady as key witnesses who had seen bridge guy up close on the day of the murders. Among those who most often mentioned these two as key witnesses were Michael Stroop and Anthony Greeno, who both had spoken with David McCain. Anthony Greeno had also spoken with the dog lady. The two witnesses had given much information about their observation of the bridge guy. Gray Hughes Investigates also gave a lot of coverage to the fact that the bridge guy on his way out of the hiking area after killing Abby and Libby had passed David McCain, who was on his way into the area. After Richard Allen was arrested and the charges against him were fully clarified, all of a sudden all the YouTubers in the Delphi case who had talked about the bridge guy passing David McCain stopped doing so and pretended as if it somehow had never happened, and their videos about this encounter were deleted. They did the same with the testimony of the dog lady, who was originally a key witness, as she had spoken to the bridge guy on the south side of the Monon High Bridge. During his testimony at the trial of Richard Allen last November, David McCain did not mention anything about the bridge guy passing him when he arrived at the hiking area, but he mentioned all the other people he had encountered in the hiking area. It was common knowledge in social media discussion groups and by YouTube creators for several years before the trial of Richard Allen that David McCain had encountered the bridge guy in the hiking area shortly after the murders, so it was strange that during his testimony McCain only left out the bridge guy and none of the others he encountered. Was he pressured to do so? In the first years after the murders of Abby and Libby, a rumor was discussed in some social media groups, and by some YouTubers, that the McCain brothers were eager to buy Ronald Logan's farm, something Logan was strongly opposed to, but the brothers would not give up. They might have intended to use Richard Allen to persuade the obstinate and dismissive Ronald Logan to sell his farm to them. Richard Allen knew the McCain brothers well as he had worked with the brothers in maintaining the Wabash Erie Canal through the Wabash Erie Canal Association. Knowing that Richard Allen was a skilled, professional salesman, eloquent, energetic and enthusiastic, would make him suitable to persuade Logan to sell the farm to the brothers. But after Abby and Libby were killed on the farm grounds, with all the focus it caused nationally and globally on the Logan farm, the brothers' interest in the Logan farm cooled considerably and the purchase attempts were permanently abandoned.
Then was there a time that you had been out trails before that?
After we moved to Delphi, I mean, we started experimenting. I mean, there were trails that we didn't know were there, but, you know, you'd hear about one and you'd go, and I'm sure by that, well, obviously I know by that point I knew about them because that's how I don't know how I got associated with the Dan something or other that runs the Erie, I think it was Dan, run like the Erie Canal thing, and McCain,
yeah, okay.
I don't remember how I became acquainted with him, but I asked him, because at Walmart, you know, as a leader, they always want you to be involved in the community, and I mean, it's a good thing,
Sure.
But you can also give money to, like, so, because we brought so many people out for that event for a day, we had so many hours, and we were able to donate money because of that from Walmart to the Erie Canal Foundation or whatever. So we worked, I guess the question is, yeah, I had been on the trails before that day. And we also worked out at the the Carrollton Bridge that day. There's a tow path or something. We picked up some stuff along there too.
Oh, okay, yeah, makes sense. All right, well, that's good.
So,